All right. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Hello, hello. I am Celeste Grupman, and welcome to our first episode of CareerQuest. As you are signing in, it would be great if you can share your name, where you're from. These webinars are always end up being a great way to kind of meet some new folks in your area. So share where you're from. We'll get started in just about 2 minutes as people are kind of joining. So we have plenty of time. Share that in the chat, and then we will do a pretty long Q&A session here at the end, or kind of in the middle. And so if you do have a question, please share that in the Q&A section. Those are the questions that I will be moderating from. So if you want your question answered by either Kaitlin or Kishawna or myself, please add that in the Q&A. Those are the questions that we'll use. We are going to be recording the webinar, and we'll send that out tomorrow, and we will have that in everybody's inbox to go back through it. So welcome, Tony from Canada. Welcome, Tunde from Newcastle, UK. Oh, we've got some folks from Toronto here, Kishawna. Big shout out to Srijayan. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Jeremy from Oklahoma. Tanzim from Connecticut. Emmanuel from Kenya. Paul from Oxford. Martin from San Francisco. We've got people from all over the world joining today, which is amazing. So yeah, keep introducing yourself, go through the chat, look for some folks who are close by. It's a great time to expand your network. And we're about 2 minutes in. So we still have some folks joining, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. So hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of CareerQuest. I'm Celeste Grupman, and I'm the CEO of Dataquest. I'm absolutely thrilled to kick off this exciting new webinar series with all of you. CareerQuest is a bi-weekly series where we're going to be exploring journeys of data professionals. Our guest speakers will be sharing practical advice about their wins and challenges to help you discover your own path to success. This series is co-hosted in partnership with the amazing Kishawna Peck, CEO of Womxn Data Science. Kishawna is absolutely a true trailblazer in our industry. She is a fierce advocate for inclusion and women in data science. She's a true thought leader in data and AI. She's got over a decade of experience leading data teams across nonprofits, fintech, advertising. She founded Canada's first conference for women in data, and she's built a thriving community of members to really bring people together, help them build their networks, help them grow their careers. Kishawna's expertise and passion make her the perfect guide for this series. And today, I am also honored to introduce our very first guest, Kaitlin Bustos. Kaitlin is a data scientist, a career coach. She's one of LinkedIn's top data science voices. And she was recently named one of North America's top 10 young AI role models. Kaitlin has successfully navigated roles across life sciences, nonprofit organizations, higher education, and national defense. She's passionate about empowering others, and that extends to her role as a Google Women Tech Makers Ambassador. So we hope you leave this conversation feeling inspired, ready to take the next step in your own career, and with some of your burning questions answered. So yeah, welcome Kishawna and Kaitlin. Before I hop off and they get started, we are recording this session. It will be sent tomorrow, and you can also listen to it on Monday as we post that live. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, Celeste. Hi, Kaitlin. I'm so
Hi.
excited to have you on this podcast episode. I wanted to kick off with speaking about your experience learning data science as someone with a psychology background, since to some people it might seem a little bit disconnected.
Yeah, so psychology was definitely my foundation. It was something that I wanted to pursue as a career. My second year of university is sort of when that changed. I started taking random classes in university. Statistics was one of them. And that's what really got me introduced to the world of data. Um, so I didn't know when I was doing statistics exactly that I was doing data science in a way, or just even working with data in that way that would segue me into data science eventually. Um, but I knew that whatever I was doing, I really enjoyed it. I loved the problem solving aspect of it. So when I enrolled in a boot camp after I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I did feel like I had a kind of a solid foundation, and so the rest did end up sort of clicking for me. So it does sound interesting coming from a non-technical background that all of a sudden data clicked, but I think it was sort of the few years I did my statistics minor, which really helped with just data literacy in general. But mostly my experience sort of learning data science along the way in my boot camp, I was just amazed by the capabilities of data and what we can do with it and how it can impact our world. So
Out of all the minors to choose, you chose statistics?
I know, I feel like no one would ever voluntarily do that, really. But yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I don't know why, because I was never really even like a math girl or loved the numbers or anything. But I think it was really just like the problem statements in statistics, which got me interested. I was like, wait, we can answer this? So.
Problem solving, which is definitely one of the core skills for data professionals. And how did you structure your learning when you decided that you did want to be a data scientist?
So like I said, I did a data science boot camp. So I think I was fortunate, like I couldn't imagine if that learning path wasn't necessarily as structured for me as it was. Like if I was trying to just do it alone, I think that would be very difficult. So yeah, the boot camp was a very structured course. It was live lectures, weekly assignments. So that helped just, keeping me accountable and whatnot. So like I was completely immersed in data science, basically like 12 hours a day for 4 months. So that was, I guess, the structure. It was just data science, data science, data science. And I loved it. But then even afterward, when I have done, like I've done different certifications and stuff that have been self-paced. And I think my biggest piece of advice for like structuring your learning that way is just holding yourself accountable and like creating your own schedule to follow. Because I've also enrolled myself in courses and I haven't touched them because I haven't made a schedule or been like, I need to do this on this day. And then it kind of just gets lost in all the other stuff I'm doing. But yeah, accountability is definitely key. And then if it is self-paced, just make a schedule to follow.
Yeah, I can definitely see how, like, there was a sale for courses one year when I was a data analyst. And it was like a sale, I forget, it was on one of those platforms for courses. And I like filled up my cart and I had so many courses and I didn't
Mhm.
touch any of them because I had no plan. So besides putting it in your schedule, was there anything else you did in order to keep that motivation going?
I think what really helped with my motivation piece, especially early in my career, is like I had a plan and I just kind of had blind faith in myself that I was going to do that. So I just did what it took to do it. And yeah, so kind of just it's more of like a mindset thing, I would say. It's like this is my plan and it's going to get done. And that was like motivation for me enough.
Hmm. And did you find any of the concepts challenging at first?
Yes, I think so. It's funny, like at first I was kind of like, oh, SQL's a breeze. Data visualization, not bad. Like you're just making pictures essentially. But I think is when I got into like the machine learning stuff, I was like, oh, okay, like it's getting a little bit challenging now. Um, Theoretically, I think I picked up the machine learning stuff pretty well, but it was more into like optimization, gradient descent. I was like, like this is really difficult, especially from like I'm not the best at calculus or anything like that. I've always really struggled with that. Like I struggled really hard in calculus in university. But I guess, like I said, just having a goal and being like, well, if I want to become a data scientist, I need to be familiar with gradient descent and optimization, and I need to know this. So whatever it took to learn, whether that was just outside of lectures and stuff, watching YouTube videos, or whatever it was, to just understand the core concept of what I was doing, and the math behind that, no matter how dreadful it was sometimes. It's just you got to do it.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has a calculus story because with myself,
Hmm.
I was in calculus for a week and I dropped out because I was like, I need to, because I also didn't do grade 11 and 12 math, but in university they
Oh.
let me go into calculus. And I went into class and I was trying to do the work and I was like, oh, this is not for me. So I dropped out the first week. And then the following year I got back in the class again after I had the foundations of grade 11 and 12 math
Mm.
from teaching myself. And I was lucky enough to have a teacher that had the patience during tutorials to go through the calculus with me, and also different YouTube channels that went deeper on concepts. That's what helped me too. But it's almost like there was no way to escape the math.
Yeah, yeah, like even my first calculus class in university, I was like, okay, whatever, like I'll just breeze by, like I don't really need this. And then later on, I was like, crap, I definitely need this.
Mhm,
So it's always creeped up, but
mhm. And how did you land your first data role?
so I landed I feel like my answer to this is kind of anticlimactic because I don't know what really else to say other than like I applied and I interviewed and I got it. But basically, it was a couple weeks after I graduated from my data science boot camp is when I got my first data science internship. And yeah, I was like one of the first people, I think maybe I was the first person in my cohort who landed a role. And I I wish I could say I had some crazy strategy that I used to get the job, but I didn't. Like I think one thing that did help me a lot was being very specific with what I wanted. And then I think luck also played a role in that, because I think that also shaped my perception like down the line too when I was in the job market again. It was like, oh, well, I got my first role in 2 weeks. Like now I have experience, this will be a breeze. Doesn't always work out that way. You're not going to land a role in 2 weeks all the time. So a lot of it I would say like is luck and just the opportunity happened to be there. My first role was a data analyst intern at a mental health nonprofit. So like essentially it was the perfect fit. I had just graduated with a major in psychology and then taken this data science diploma program. So I had the blend of like working at a mental health nonprofit with my psychology background and then obviously the data analysis stuff from my data science bootcamp. So
Mhm,
it was kind of just like the right opportunity came at the right time. I do feel like when I did land my first full-time data science role, I think that's more of like a story of something I actually did um, right to get it, I guess. So I had another data science internship at a consulting company, and 4 months, 4 to 6 months into that, I got promoted as full-time data science consultant. And I think how I did that was essentially I just worked my butt off. I made sure I I think my biggest piece of advice is like don't if you're an intern, don't act like an intern. Like act like a full-time employee, like involve yourself, immerse yourself in everything that's going on in the company that you're interested in. Yeah, so like by the 4 month mark of my internship, I was very, very involved in the consulting company that I was at. I was like a key team member in one of our client projects by that time already, but it's just because I took initiative, like I went above and beyond like my role as an intern, because I knew that like that I wanted to be a full-time data scientist at this specific company. And then just being surrounded by the full-time data science consultants, I kind of knew, I just modeled what they were doing, and I knew that if I did what they did, then I'd probably end up in the same position as them as well.
There's so many gems there. So from your first data role, you said it was easy for you, but what you're not hearing is that you were uniquely qualified for that role
Mm-hmm.
because you had the
Yeah.
background in psychology and you had the data background. So not discounting your former experience, that helped feed into that first role. And then with your second role, I live by basically doing the job that you want and acting like
Mm-hmm.
already have that because that's similar to you. I was also an intern at some point. I was also an
Yeah.
intern and I just started doing things where I was like, well, if I wasn't an intern, what would I be doing? What would I be contributing
Mm-hmm.
to? So it's like you don't need permission to show that you can fit that role already. And that's one of the major gems that I took from that story.
Yeah, exactly.
What does your portfolio look like? What are some key pieces that are in there that help you stand out?
Okay, so one of like I have honed in on my one project that I did for my capstone for the data science diploma bootcamp. It's basically what I did was predicted patient prognosis with like 80% accuracy, given a specific psychiatric medication that they were taking. So I've always went back and referenced that project. I'm so proud of it. It was even it being my very first data science project. I was like, I don't even know where that came from, but um, yeah, that is a project that's like I have like maybe two, three projects in my portfolio, which I think goes to say like you don't need 10 plus little data science projects to have a good portfolio. Maybe you need a couple really solid, good quality projects under your belt that you can reference and leverage. And one thing that I made sure I did in my portfolio or even like in interviews and stuff when I was referencing my portfolio is just making sure that the projects I'd done or whatever I was referencing was relevant to the job that I was applying for. Um, because if I'm, let's say, interviewing for a marketing data science role, are they really going to care that I made like a patient prognosis prediction 4 years ago? Probably not. So I think that's my biggest tip for creating your portfolio is make your projects relevant to the roles that you're applying for.
And I think that also goes back to you said you knew what you wanted.
Hmm.
You said you knew what you wanted, and that helped guide the projects that are probably in your portfolio because they're probably all related to themes that you are interested in and you can speak to. So that helped guide that build as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think that even shows your employer or whoever you're kind of showcasing this portfolio to is like you kind of stick to your values as a professional, and then that kind of will bleed into the rest of your career. Because like I've been told by my employers before, like my bosses, like the reasons why they hired me, and it usually stemmed back to just like the passion I had for the specific thing that they were doing. So like I also always say like go toward what you're naturally gravitated toward because I think that's when you'll get the best results.
hmm And after you've gotten selected and it's time for the interviews and it reaches technical interviews, how do you prep for those? What's your strategy there?
Yeah, so I guess most recently I've leveraged ChatGPT a lot for technical interviews and just asking it to give me mock technical interviews after like giving it the job description and even like what my skills are, like what's likely to be asked in this technical interview. And ChatGPT mock interviews Oh my gosh, in like the past 5 or 10 whatever interviews I've done, it has helped me so much, like an incredible amount. I think before I started leveraging ChatGPT, I was kind of just looking at the job description myself and guessing what they would likely be asking me just based on the tools that that company used, or like even what the role entailed, whether it was like heavy machine learning models or heavy on data visualization. Um, so leverage ChatGPT or just like yourself analyze those job descriptions and make sure that you have the skills and knowledge to like tackle the questions that involve said skills. Um, but yeah, technical interviews, I'll say even at the beginning of my career were a struggle. Like I used to get so nervous, like so nervous. Like I couldn't talk, like my voice was shaky, like hands were sweating. It was crazy. But yeah, over time, like the more prepared you feel, the way like the less nervous you get. I think something also that really helped me in technical interviews was being on the other side of them. So in my previous companies, I was conducting technical interviews, and like when you do that as an interviewer, you're like, it's not that scary. And you can even tell like the candidates are, they were just like me. They were sweating, they were nervous, they didn't know how to talk in some questions. Um, but I think something to remember is like typically the interviewer's on your side. So like you don't need to be that nervous. Like I don't know. And then another thing that really has helped me through technical interviews is like, don't ever jump into the code first. Like, you need to always sort of be talking, always be thinking out loud, and just explaining your process, like pseudo code first, always, always. And even if you don't really know, try and like reference something that you do know that might be slightly related to whatever technical question you're getting asked. Um, I think that just the very worst thing you could do, so no one do this, is like just sit in silence and be stumped, because the interviewer has no clue what's going, like your mind's probably racing when you're sitting in silence stumped, but the interviewer has no clue what you're thinking. They probably just think it's blank up there or something. So you really need to just communicate whatever you're thinking, if it's right, if it's wrong. I think a lot of technical interviews, whether or not you get exact syntax right or something, it's your problem solving ability and how you work through and like approach these problems.
Have you had any take homes, and how do you approach those compared to the technical ones that are in, like with the interviewer?
Yeah, I have had take homes. I prefer those a lot more, just because you have more time. The way I approach it is just like the way I'd approach anything, whether it was a school assignment, a work assignment. Um, yeah, I leverage my resources. A big thing is like doing your research on the company, see what they already have out there, try and kind of like emulate their style or like what they're doing, um, I think is really important.
And do you have any like really good interview tips that you find usually worked for you?
I think my biggest tip is like be yourself. Truly be yourself, because the interviews where I was like the least stressed and I was just having what seemed like a conversation with the person interviewing me is when I've seen the best results. It's when I've gone furthest in the interview process. It's when I've got the most offers. It's like when I'm not so scripted and trying to answer everything like exactly the way I think they'd want to hear it. Like being yourself and just try and make it as normal as a conversation as possible. I think something to remember, and this is something that kind of switched my mindset a little bit in interviews, is this could be your coworker or your boss or something, whoever you're interviewing with. So it's like, and eventually down the line, you're going to want to build like good rapport with them. You're going to want to jump on a call with them casually and talk and stuff like that. So it's like just be as casual as possible is honestly my biggest tip, because also from their end, they like they want to hire someone who they can talk to and they can get along with and they gel with too. Not just someone who like does cookie cutter answers necessarily, you know what I mean? So there's a big kind of like human component that I lean into in the interviews. It's just like it's two humans chatting about your experience and what you know and your skills.
Definitely. For myself, it's a two-way conversation to see if it makes
Hmm.
sense on both sides, and that kind of reduces the anxiety around it because, yeah, you're hoping to work with this person someday, so why not just relax into it? Did you find anything particularly different or surprising when you went from your boot camp to actually working in data science?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that sort of shocked me, just coming from such like a structured data science boot camp where it's like, okay, we collect the data, we clean the data, we visualize it, we model it. Like it's very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type thing. In the industry, it is the complete opposite. Like there's a lot of ambiguity. It's very kind of an unstructured environment. At least these are the roles that I've had. And it's like you need to adapt to like whatever data problem is thrown at you. And another thing that kind of surprised me is like when you do data science in academia and stuff, it's like, okay, here's your problem, here's your project. You have like 3 weeks to build something, to do something, and then present it. In industry and in the real world, it is not like that at all. You're not completing any data science project in 3 weeks, let alone even sometimes like a year. Like these are very, very long, extended projects that you're working on. Um, so yeah, those are a couple of things like the length of time you spend on like one data science aspect, and then just the kind of like ambiguity and unstructuredness of whatever you're doing with the data. And it's gonna differ depending on what organization you work for, even sometimes what industry you work for, depending on what stage they're at in their data journey. Like if someone is still using like some legacy database like Microsoft Access or something, like you're not going to ever be doing machine learning in a couple weeks. Like what you're going to be doing for probably 6 months is like ETL pipelines and moving them to a more up-to-date database or something. So yeah, it's what surprised me was like the long, long processes in industry compared to like you do this, you get it done in academia.
I was laughing because one of my projects while I was an intern somewhere was to make an access database. I was like, there has to be better ways than this. Um,
Yeah.
that's why I was laughing. I don't think anyone really uses access anymore. So let's talk about community. In your early career growth, were you really interacting with community much?
I was, yeah. I think that's what has kind of led me to be such a community girl now, is like when I first came into data science, coming from that boot camp environment, they really honed in on community and like made sure it was known how important community is in the tech industry. So that helped a lot. And I think that's like that's a difference between maybe like studying data science in university or even like doing solo learning versus like being in kind of like a boot camp environment or just environment, like fast-paced environment with more people. Um, is you don't necessarily get that community environment. Like doing statistics in university, did I feel like I had a stats community behind me? No, like definitely not. Um, so yeah, like being immersed in a place where they kind of made you have a community, like they had different events every day, like lunch and learns. They had just like go mingle with people in like the web development program and stuff. So that broke me out of my shell a lot because I'm quite shy and I'm quite introverted. So kind of being forced to go talk to someone in web development, I was like, oh gosh. But like the exposure to community has helped a lot just break me out of my shell and just understand like the importance of community too. And like it's the way that you feel after a community event that I think makes the community aspect so important. Like, of course, I dreaded having that like one-on-one before, or even just like going to a mingling event before the event happened. During the event, yeah, I was still a little bit nervous. It wasn't the best time ever, but it's like it's after where you're like, I'm really glad I did that. I met really cool people. I was able to like share my experiences. Um, so yeah, so from the beginning, I was kind of immersed in community. And then because of the feelings that it gave me, I went and sought out a bunch of other communities because I was like, data science people are the best, tech communities are the actual best. And like, I don't ever want to lose the sense of connectedness with all these like-minded individuals.
Hmm. And how do you find, because you've stayed around in communities, so
Yeah.
have you found that they've been, like, how have they helped you throughout your career?
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking about this morning actually. Um, So I think I've found the greatest benefits from community is when if you're in like a career lull or things just aren't going the best for you in your career, I think that's a time to really lean on your community, in the sense that not necessarily like, well, in the sense that a lot of people in said community have probably gone through something very similar to what you're going through. Um, because even kind of just in the data science world, I found a lot of people like that have been in this industry for a long time. Um, Whether they called it data science back then or not, like they've been around the block pretty much. And I think that that is just inspiring as well. And I think another thing is that you when you're involved in these communities, you obviously you meet people that you're like, whoa, like their role is really cool, or like what they've done in their career is really cool, and you look up to them and you admire them. And then you start talking to them or whatever, and you see like who knows, sometimes they're even in a similar situation as you are. And I think it's very easy if you are in a career lull or something's not going right to be so like to be very hard on yourself and to be like, this like maybe this isn't for me, and like internalize all these different rejections and have all these different feelings. And I think that many people who you look up to, who you realize are in similar situations or have been, you don't look at them and like, oh, you're a nothing data scientist because you got laid off or because you quit your job or something. Like, I think it's just, it's given me like a different perspective almost on like everyone goes through things in their careers, like high points, low points, everything for a varied amount of time. And I think it's so easy to let one moment in your career define you and think, oh, my career to this has led up to this point. And it's like, that's not true. Um, so I think it's like almost given me a sense of like never discount your experience. Um, so yeah, I love community and I just love the people that I've met in them, and they've just like they've inspired me more than like I think they'll ever know. So
Mhm. I'm sure they feel the same way about you, Caitlin.
uh hopefully.
I'm one of them.
Uh,
So with networking, so you said that you were really introverted, really shy.
mhm.
What are some tips you have for new people in data when they're building their professional network while they're still learning?
Um, I think just going to in-person events helps. It's almost like if you're shy and introverted, it's kind of like exposure therapy. Like you just have to go do it. And it gets easier over time. Like, oh gosh, my first couple in-person like networking events, I was like scared to shake someone's hand because I was like, my hand is literally dripping wet sweat right now. Um, so it's just like stuff like that, that it gets better over time. But I think one of the things I tell myself, if you're scared to do something, that's fine. Like just do it scared. You can do it scared, you can do it, whatever feelings you're feeling, you can still do the thing. Um, And then I think that helps even afterwards. You realize, yes, I was scared, but was it that scary? Was anything that scary at this networking event? No, of course not. So yeah, just going to in-person events. Oh, and another one of my biggest tips actually is make friends. Like, don't go into it. I think when people hear networking, they think like, oh gosh, like I have to go talk to someone higher up at some company, ask them if they're hiring, like get them to get me a job or something. Like, that's not what networking is. And I even had that kind of misconception at first. I was like, what do I talk about with these people? Like, to see if they have opportunities for me. And it's like, no, you go and you make friends in your industry, and I think that's what networking is, and that's when you'll get the most value out of these relationships is they have to be genuine and authentic, and they will be. Like, if you guys are both in this same place voluntarily, like going to a data event at like 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, you have something in common. So it's like you can talk to them as like they're your friend or something. It's not as daunting as we can make it out to be in our heads.
I mean, what better way to spend a Wednesday?
Exactly.
Um, so besides the like self-learning pathways that you did, you also did the boot camps. Did you also have a mentor along the way at all? And how did you get to meet that mentor and build those relationships?
Yeah, so I think my first sort of like official mentor was in my data science consulting role. So like I said, I started as an intern, eventually was a data science consultant. Um, and how did I So my boss sort of set me up with them in a way, but he kind of realized, like, I think from hearing through the interview process, like I met my mentor like the first day of my job, I think. So yeah, I think my boss, he heard loud and clear like what my passion was, what I want to do with my career, this is what I want, and I think he realized that there was also someone on the team who could help me basically achieve what I wanted to do. So he set up a meeting for both of us, and it was, I think one of the things that I feel like most grateful for is like there's people that you gel with and click with, and then there's people sometimes that you don't, and that's okay. But I would always say like try and get a mentor that you truly gel and click with. And I was very lucky that on our first one-on-one, it's like that type of relationship. You have one conversation with them and you're like, okay, yeah, we're best friends. Um, so it was kind of like that, which I feel very lucky for. But I guess my whole like experience with mentorship is holy crap, it helped. It helped so much. Like especially having a mentor who you look up to, and you also see other people look up to, because in my company this gentleman was like the best. Like everyone loved him, everyone went to him for advice, everyone just really looked up to him, and I was like, wow, like this is someone you want to learn from. So yeah, I've been out of that job for, oh my gosh, like 3, 4 years now. And I still keep in contact with him. We literally went for lunch like 2 months ago. And he still helps me a lot in my career. But it's turned into like I said, like more of a friendship. Like I think friendships in this industry are so important. And yes, they're your mentor. Yes, they kind of help you along the way. But even like informal mentors, I think are really helpful. And I think when you build that friendship with somebody, that's all, like that's when you know it's authentic, that they want to see you grow and succeed, and like they just want to help you out because they're also your friend. Um, so yeah, and then even my experience as a mentor myself has been really amazing. It's given me like such a great sense of purpose in this industry, helping other people. And I think another misconception about mentors is like you have to be an expert, you have to be the best at what you're doing. But that's not true at all. Like I claimed myself as a mentor, I think that my first year of my career. And that's simply because like I think all you need to do to be a mentor is having done something before that someone else hasn't. And I was like, okay, I just landed my full-time data science role. I see all these people still trying to do it. I was like, I just did it, so I can help them. Not to say I'm the best data scientist in the world and everyone needs to teach from me, but it's like to learn from me. But no, like as long as you've done something successfully in the past, even if like you have gone through ups and downs while you were there, that makes you an even better mentor because you also know what not to do and what mistakes not to make. Um, so yeah, I think anyone can be a mentor if you've done something that someone else is trying to do. And yeah, mentorship is the best. Again, it's just like creating meaningful relationships within the industry.
And I can already feel your LinkedIn inbox filling up of people who want mentorship. So would you mind distinguishing what they could expect from mentorship from you versus coaching from you?
I think so I guess my experience as a mentor has been more or less like a little bit more of like personal relationships. And I think there's more of a kind of like a psychological aspect to mentorship because the mentees that I've had, not gonna lie, like they've struggled a little bit, like even mentally, and they've internalized the rejection and stuff. And so I think in mentorship, I've focused honestly a lot more on mindset. Whereas career coaching, it's a little bit more structured, um, as in like I'm going to help you with your career, not necessarily what you're going through right now, in a way, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. A little less emphasis on the mindset, even though I know as a career coach, sometimes you have to throw those in.
Yeah, you have to. You
Yeah,
have to. Like
sometimes you
that's
have to throw
always going
those
to be
in.
there.
Yeah, in case they're having like a hurdle or something like that.
Hmm.
Especially with the economic climate right now, I know that some early career data professionals may be having some trouble. What kind of advice would you give them for entering the market?
Persistence. Like I was just talking to a recruiter the other day. He's like president of recruiting. He's been doing this forever. Um, And yeah, he basically was like, I won't lie to you, like it's a terrible market right now. Like it's really bad. But his advice to me, he was like, but you can't stop, you don't give up. And I guess that's my advice to everyone here too. It's you can't give up. Like no matter if the market's good, if it's bad, like it's just it sucks, obviously. But I mean more like even more reason to work harder. Um, to polish your portfolio, polish your resume. And like, I think it even gives us a really good opportunity to like really focus and understand like what we want as professionals ourselves because looking for a full-time job is a full-time job and it's like you want to make that process as easy as possible for you so it's like don't go sending out a bunch of random general applications like in this competitive market you need to get very specific with what you want and how you're going to get that because like being a generalist and just sending any same application to 20 jobs it's not really going to get you anywhere because with these jobs having 1,000+ applicants there's going to be someone who like tailored the crap out of their resume and who's probably like seems perfect for the job so in such a competitive market you just have to work really hard and like come up with a strategy.
And part of the strategy could be looking in places where you wouldn't normally look at. Like maybe it's not that you're working at the top companies for data and AI right now. Maybe you're working at a company where they're just building out their data foundations and they're more open to having entry level professionals working there. Um, I would basically use your data skills to figure out which companies are making stances about building those data foundations and they need those type of roles versus the ones that are replacing those roles or contracting because of market conditions right now. Like it requires a little bit of
Mhm.
research to be like, okay, and also like how Kaitlin has her unique intersection of psychology and health and data that makes her stand out automatically. So, what is your intersection? And it doesn't have to be that you did like a university education and that's your intersection. It could be something else. Like you could come from a completely different industry and you have that domain knowledge and it would apply really well in like a workplace that's similar to that. You just have to be creative. I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Kishawna, I am gonna jump in here. I've got a ton of questions and we know we only have about 15 minutes left, and I feel like that's a great, um, I love that sentiment. I know I talk to people all the time and they say, I've sent out 200 resumes and I haven't gotten any calls. And I'm like, that is your problem. Why did you send out
Hmm.
200 resumes? You couldn't have possibly filtered and really been thoughtful about this. So take your time, apply for a few jobs that are a good fit. I know we were hearing about a contraction in tech. At the same time, there's an expansion of tech outside of tech.
Mhm.
As people are bringing AI in, as they're trying to incorporate these tools and understand their data so that they can actually utilize these tools. So get outside of the FANG and thinking about specific companies as the roles that you need. And you'll find that there is that expansion and there's a lot of opportunity right now. So I love that. Um, so like I said, we have so many questions. We had a few that came in out ahead, and I want to make sure to get those answered. So I'm just going to dive in. The first question we had is, somebody is curious about the difference between data analysis and business intelligence. We talked a lot about data science today, but a lot of times when you're getting started, you're maybe going to go into an analysis, or an intelligence role. Can you speak a little bit about what those differences are and what you see right now, as the differences in those roles?
Yeah, so um honestly, so obviously on paper there's, if you look up data analyst role, data a business intelligence role, they're going to look different. Typically business intelligence focuses on making intelligent decisions for the business, and you're kind of working on growing that business in a sense and making just smart decisions. From my experience, it seems like more operationally, versus a data analyst role. It doesn't necessarily have to be about like you're making decisions for the business. You could be just analyzing a client's data or whatnot. But with that being said, there are a lot of roles, even data scientist, data analyst, business intelligence analyst, or whatever, that are, they completely overlap. So like what you're thinking, like they're not completely distinct at all. Like there are so many aspects of it, that will overlap, and that it depends on the industry, the company. Like I've been on a team where my role was data scientist, someone else's role was data analyst, but we were doing the exact same thing. So it just depends.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
gonna say in my day, the business intelligence team was doing data engineering. So
Yeah.
it really matters. You need to read the job descriptions.
Hmm.
Job descriptions matter, right?
Yeah.
I think that's great. I love this question because we were talking about a tight market right now. So somebody's asking, how can I independently create a revenue stream as a data science besides just being employed at a company? So what are some gig opportunities? How would you approach that? Kishawna, I know that you are forever an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you have some great ideas here.
Kaitlin is as well, so we're both gonna we can go back and forth on this one. So I provide data and AI strategic consulting, usually around inclusive AI product development. I also speak, so I do like keynote speaking, panel speaking. At the beginning, you usually have to speak for free, but after a while, you can charge. I also do career coaching. I used to do career coaching, but now I move more to business coaching. So I more help companies that are looking to grow their businesses, with a data or AI focused approach. So they could be not in data and AI, but just the way they're doing things could be accelerated with even data informed strategies. And even if you wanted to do some consulting. I know you can do freelance work as well. I would just look on those different boards to see how it's priced and if it makes sense for you to do. Or you could also answer different RFPs that go out from companies that are looking for consultants to do work for them. I know the government, the Canadian government, but also the US government, they have banks as well of different RFPs that you can apply for. RFPs are requests for proposals, so that you could apply to them, and those are like longer term contracts that you could work.
Yeah, I second what Kishawna said. Yeah, for me, I think one, if you don't have like that much experience as like a data scientist or data analyst in the real world, is tutoring. That's what I started out with actually. I was a statistics tutor before I even had my like first data analyst internship. So tutoring is really good, career coaching, mentorship, public speaking. Again, you'll do a lot for free at first, but then you can start charging. Um, Another one, like I've had some interesting contracts that I've kind of just stumbled upon, but I think the way that I stumbled upon them is just be like putting yourself out there in a way. Like if there's, so for example, so I um wrote or authored certification questions for an AI practitioner certificate. But the way I got that contract or gig was I actually took the certified data science practitioner certification. And I scored very well on that. So then they came back and asked me to be an author. So it's kind of just like putting yourself out there and in like unique situations where you can get recognized and you can get noticed. With that being said, even like going and doing hackathons, I'm not saying you're going to make money from the hackathons, but like the people that you'll meet along the way, if they like how you work, what you do, it can be very beneficial. Like I was a mentor for like a hackathon team once, and then the next like week at work, my boss was like, was there anyone good? Like, let's talk to them. So it's like just putting yourself out there, doing your best, and then I think sometimes the opportunities present themselves.
I love that. We talked a lot about community and absolutely empathize with in-person events and that sort of cocktail hour of who am I going to talk to? And, just knowing that other people are feeling that way is so helpful. We have a really strong community at Dataquest. And I definitely recommend that, especially if you're feeling hesitant about in-person events, this is a great place to kind of get your feet wet. And all you need to do there is just engage in projects. So that dovetails that mentorship piece. Is even at Dataquest, even if you're just a beginning learner and you've only done a couple of projects, there are people who are coming who have done one less than you, and you can start to share those what not to do. And it's a great way to kind of start. And once that first domino falls, it definitely becomes a lot easier. The next, we have a lot of folks that are asking questions about building portfolio. They want to see your portfolio, Kaitlin. I definitely want to make sure that I get your LinkedIn or your LinkedIn profile and your GitHub profile and share that with everyone. Would it be okay if I got that from you after this and included that in our follow-up email with the recording? Wonderful.
Definitely.
So we'll share that out after the session for everyone if you want to kind of dig in and engage with Kaitlin in that way. So yeah, we had a lot of those. Somebody was asking, they said, Dataquest teaches courses in data engineering and data analysis and data science and business analysis. What order, as sort of a newbie coming in for self-guided, what order would you sort of recommend somebody kind of start in? And I know that's going to be highly personal, but it would be great to get different perspectives.
Mm-hmm. I would say the order of sitting down and figuring out what you want to do first. Because why are you picking a path and you don't know what you want to do? all of those disciplines are related, but they're not the same. Luckily, with Dataquest, I think there's two of the paths, I think that like you start kind of the same, but then it branches off. But you should really sit down with yourself, decide what you want to do. Like, look at some job postings. Which ones are you interested in? Are you more interested in the data engineering ones versus the data analyst ones versus the data scientist ones? Look up some people that are working in those roles. Is what they're doing look interesting? Can you possibly hop on a 15-minute call with them? I don't think you need to do all the paths.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to do all the paths. No, so yeah, I would just read the curriculums to see what interests you and go from there. Like yeah, if it was me, maybe I'd start with, well, I guess it also depends on your foundation. Like if you don't know anything about data, maybe start with data analysis and then go from there. But honestly, just look at the curriculums, look what's interesting and see what you want.
And so I think the best advice here is, no, you don't have to do all of these paths. The entire curriculum is not necessary. If you are curious about where to start and you want some more specific advice, please email me at hello@dataquest.io. We'll make sure that I get that question, and I'm happy to jump on a quick conversation with you and do a little digging, make sure you get started on the right path. Let's see, we've got 4 minutes left. I'm going to go to some of these live questions. So we had somebody asking about sort of somebody's lacking some of the mathematics side of things. So I know this is definitely where you started out, Kaitlin, from your story. Can you recommend a couple of key concepts that might be a good place to focus for somebody who's a little math hesitant?
I think the most important sort of like place to focus is matrix algebra if you're doing anything with data science like that. When I took my matrix algebra class in university, I was really into it. I thought it was definitely cool. But then when I took my data science bootcamp, all those concepts just came flooding back. So like if you're working with data, you're likely working with like data frames, arrays or whatnot, matrices, like matrix algebra. And what I learned in university from those courses has helped me an incredible amount in data science and analyst, anything. The more, I guess, difficult concepts, I wouldn't really like when you approach them, like when it comes up, then I think you should learn it. Like don't go do a crash course in calculus right now because odds are you probably won't come that in handy. But if you encounter a problem where you're working with machine learning models and you need to optimize this model and you're just like unsure of the foundations of optimization or gradient descent or anything like that, then you should maybe take that crash course in calculus. But like the more intense mathy stuff, I wouldn't worry about too much until you actually encounter it and need it. But something foundational that I really highly recommend is matrix algebra.
Okay. Kishawna, do you have any additional math stuff that you would add?
Well, me and math, we have a very interesting relationship. Um, so I don't know if I've said this to the DataQuest audience before, but I failed stats one and then I passed it the second time, and I failed stats two and I passed it the second time. It seems like I needed Kaitlin around at those times during my degree. But like stats and linear algebra and calculus, they just followed me. Like I finished my undergrad, and when I did my postgrad, they came back up again. And when I did my master's, they came back up again. And it was during my master's that I was noticing this is all like grade 11 and 12 math. Like it's
Mhm.
all the foundations. And I think when you frame it as like this is the math of data science or this is the math of AI, like it can kind of make you a little bit nervous about it. But if you think about it like, oh, it's just the basics, and I've seen some of the homework that students have from like high school, and I don't know if I could do their homework now, but if you frame it that way, it's kind of like, okay, like I'm just learning the foundations. It's just a refresher. I just need to go back to some core concepts, and that'll make it easier. You don't need to be a mathematician, but you do need to understand, like Kaitlin said, those different sound bites that are applicable when you're doing machine learning.
Uh, Amazing advice. That if you are curious about the math and the Dataquest platform, we do teach the math that you need to be successful. That math is all at the beginning of our machine learning path. If you're looking for it, that's where you'll find those courses. You do need to have a strong understanding of Python and NumPy and Pandas, because we do teach it through that lens, which is actually really helpful because you get to apply it right away. I think a lot of folks struggle with math because it doesn't feel applicable in real life. Maybe it's an applied problem, but that problem still feels very much not attached to your day-to-day. And so if that's something that you're curious, I definitely recommend looking there. And we are now 1 minute over. And so we're going to go ahead and cut it off here. We have so many more questions. I'm going to try to curate a few of the questions and include some of those answers in the follow-up email for everyone so that you get that. If you didn't get your question answered directly, maybe you got it answered in the bulk of the content today. So I hope that's the case. If not, please feel free to email that to hello@dataquest.io. Again, and we'll try to get that answer for you. We really do want to be a great resource here. And so, yeah, I just want to thank you both again for being here today. And that we hope to see you in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing this series every 2 weeks. So we'll talk to you then.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for coming, Kaitlin.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.